to 10 to 11:15. And I also know that Chen Hakan has to leave at 11 to Long Ma Chao. If we can have 3 people here, then we can continue until 12.
喺阿坡10:3 take over， 睇下你想幾點鐘休有個小息啊？你哋如果係嘅咧，11點鐘先小息好唔好？由而家衝到去11點。
8點半、10點半好似。
10點半。10點半啱一半到啦，係嘛？好啊，10點半好。
Yeah, we'll have a break at 10:30.
政府人員入嚟好嗎？啊
Let us invite the officials to enter the room.
你有咩問題你可以俾我哋班同事好嗎？有咩嘢係需要提我咧？就 anytime 嚇。長期咁呢個叫中文長期服嚇，長期護理服務 OK 得。歡迎局長。
May I welcome the Secretary, and also his team. The PAC is now called to order. We are now on Chapter 63, Report number 63, Chapter 1, Provision of Long-Term Care Services for the Elderly. Our lead member is Ms. Helen Leong. Mr. Secretary, do you want to say anything? First, Chairman, with your permission, I'll make a brief introduction before you speak. I'd just like to see whether any member would like to declare interest. If not, then we move on to the chapter that's on long-term care services for the elderly. I just want to remind you that we will speak on the value for money report. We do not want to get into policy matters. The Council has spent 10 meetings on this, but the progress is rather scary. And progress is next to none. Every year there are several thousand elderly died while waiting for the service, and last year 5,000 odd. In the previous years 4,000 odd. Now the elderly have contributed to the prosperity and stability of Hong Kong, but the administration is not able to meet the final demand. No wonder the Council has had 10 meetings. You can refer to info paper 1 to 11. When you speak, you need to address this point. You need to give us a timetable. We want to be forward-looking. I hope lessons can be learned so that improvements can be made. And there shouldn't be any more need for several thousand elderly passing away while waiting for the service. Can you explain to us why that happened? Perhaps our members will put questions to you in the same direction. Now we look at the matter from the value for money perspective. If you want to get into policy matters, I will allow that because sometimes it's difficult to draw the line. The Secretary, and then Alan Leung, and then Chang Hai-kan, and then Wong Yok-man. In fact, Mr. Wong Yok-man has asked the same question during the LegCo questions and answers session since 2008. The Policy Secretary, first of all, I'd like to thank the Director of Audit for conducting a very detailed review and making a very detailed report, and we fully agree with the recommendations. I'd like to thank members for their attention towards long-term care service, and we are concerned about the issue raised by the chairman. I will highlight a few points, and then I will speak on the waiting time on the whole. This term of the government, in particular, has paid attention very closely to long-term care for the elderly, and we have 4 major policy initiatives, and one is to invest more in caring for the elderly. Now the expenditure has reached $6.2 billion on serving the elderly. In view of aging population, 1 in 7 is above age 65, and by 2014, 1 in 3, or 2.5 million elderly. We do not dodge the issue, and we need to face up to this issue. We're dealing with it seriously. As the waiting time, that's an issue, and it has to be dealt with seriously. At the LegCo meetings, I did explain that previously. First of all, we have to admit that in terms of policy, we have room to make improvements. Now, the waiting time is long because community service has to catch up. We need to improve community service because aging at home is the main thrust, and the aging in place as the core institutional care has back up. We should avoid early admission into the institutions and unnecessary admission into institutions. If there are adequate community services, their queue will be shortened. The elderly doesn't want to get into an institution because, as the saying goes, it's better to stay at home rather than stay in a palace. We need to adopt a 2-pronged approach. We need to strengthen community care service, and in our reply, we've also mentioned that, and we'll also increase the residential places in the institutions and make good use of available places in the institutions. We will make full use of the board place scheme so that the elderly can be benefited. The strategy is this. We have short-term, medium-term, and long-term measures. In the short term, we buy quality A1 places. We raise the requirement from A2 to A1. And we also increase the price of the place we bought. That is to enhance service so that more elderly can make use of service. And also, when there is government buildings available, we'll convert them into homes for the elderly. In the long term, there should be good planning. And in the reply to the Director of Audit, we say we look at the matter from a comprehensive angle. We do not adopt a piecemeal approach. As for plans for institutions, we plan to provide 5,000 within this term, and 3,000 will be, another 3,000 will be provided through a service voucher. We are considering adopting a service voucher approach. We should think out of the box. We should be courageous. The Elderly Commission, within a year, I believe the middle of the next year, will make proposals whether there will be a money follow the person approach. Starting from 2015, the remaining 3 years, 3 financial years, there will be 3,000 places under the voucher scheme. That's money follow the person. That is also private land for welfare purpose. That's also thinking of the box. Land is a major constraint. Without the hardware, you don't have residential places, and you are not able to have large pieces of land. We therefore liaise with the major welfare agencies. If they have land, if they can do redevelopment or renovation or expansion in situ, we can provide the help. We hope that through in situ redevelopment or expansion, there can be an increase in residential places. We make use of lotteries fund. We're talking about $20 billion. 42 institutions have expressed their concerns, and there are 62 projects. Mr. Wong Yok-man. Now, you have spoken that on policy. You need to address the report. He spent 15 minutes on nonsense. He should address the report. Why should he go into details? Answer our questions. Mr. Wong, he is our guest. We should let him have some time. If you think he hasn't addressed your question, then when it's your time to ask questions, you can put your questions to him. I'll just make a short supplement. Yes, we have time. Thank you. There are 20,000 elderly waiting. They are less fortunate because they are old, and they are in their twilight years, and some of them can't even wait. And that's why he is so keen on that. Mr. Wong, would you let him explain that? Just give me 2 more minutes. Yes, okay. Thank you for your indulgence.
We anticipate that we will have 9,000 service places, which translates to 7,000 residential care places. And I'd like to go back on the issue that some elderly people are waiting to be admitted to hospitals. And while they're waiting, they are receiving services from us. And some elderly people are living in private hospitals. And the waiting time is very long, but we cannot blame our elderly people. We have to respect their wishes because we allow them to make their choices in terms of the districts, the residential care services. Almost 95% of the elderly people are allowed choices. So as we always said, if they don't have any preferences, our 7, they can be accommodated in the 7 residential care homes. But that said, if they have preferences, we also respect them because the choice of district is important because they would like their relatives to be able to visit them. In terms of nursing homes, more than 40% are waiting in private care homes, and for care and attention homes, around 40% are waiting. So I just want you to know that while they are waiting, they are receiving services. A lot of them are staying in private care homes already. I allow the secretary to elaborate because not everyone have read this report. So during this open hearing, I just like everyone to know the background. The first question from Mr. Alan Leung, our lead member. Alan, you have 15 minutes. I'll give you more time if necessary. Please make reference to the paragraph you are talking about while you give your questions. Thank you very much. Alan. Thank you, Chairman. I think you are very hardworking. You have looked at discussions with the Secretary from previous meetings regarding long-term care services for the elderly. I understand why Mr. Raymond Wong is so concerned. I've heard what the Secretary said for the last 5 minutes. Well, I wanted to say something, but I'll just leave it to Mr. Raymond Wong. The situation is that the administration is saying that they will address the issue, but yet they never do anything in actual. So through this report, the Director of Audit secured statistics that the LegCo or our subcommittees cannot secure. As the chairman said, elderly people on the central waiting list is ever increasing. And we have more than 30,000 people waiting already. And every year, the number of elderly people who pass away has increased from 4,000 or 5,000 in the past to 5,700, which is the latest audited figure from last year. And and we only have a few hundred subsidized residential care places. And aging is a reality we have to face. And the audit reports will lead up to 2021, and the by projection, the figure at 2030 will be that 25% or more of our population will be aged 65 or more. And so we are looking at a longer and longer queue, and aging will gradually speed up. And the number of long-term residential care places for the elderly, and we don't have a lot of measures for aging, and the number of residential care places cannot catch up with the increase in aging. So I have a question for the Secretary for public housing estates, and it's claimed that the waiting time is 3 years, although it might not necessarily reflect the truth, but at least we have a target to look at. So I'd like to see if the Secretary has anything to say on that. So I just want to know the Secretary's view first. When we look at the audit report, the picture is that the figure of the central waiting list is not real, and 6,800 elderly people are listed as non-active. They were originally arranged to enter residential homes, but now they are receiving social care services. But at the same time, they can request to enter public care homes. Well, the figure looks less after deducting these people, but it doesn't reflect the reality. Last year, more than 500 frail elders could not enter the care homes. And looking at the audit report, I see that we didn't have enough assessors. the assessment criteria were not consistent, and as such, our elderly people suffer, and they could not get up to speed. And waiting time is so long, and some of the elderly people were left unassessed. And for subsidized care places, according to the Director of Audit, a lot of elderly people could not secure residential care places, and at the same time, some services are left unused. So we are not using our resources efficiently. And for some subsidized nursing homes, some of these places were left vacant for 5 years without any uses. So I guess other members would also ask similar questions soon. I think these are questions the Director of Audit and the Secretary have to answer in terms of effectiveness. And the Secretary mentioned the pilot scheme for the voucher pilot scheme for social care services will be extended to elderly care homes. But what were the results of the pilot scheme? Up until August this year, 1,200 elderly people were chosen to take part in the pilot scheme. If a quarter of these elderly people did not adopt the money follow the person approach, so the effort was all in vain. Why were they considered new applicants? I just want the Secretary to address this issue. And some elderly people were staying in private care homes, but when we looked at the audit reports, some private care homes would look at the amounts of subsidy the elderly people receive via CSSA, and they would adopt their service level accordingly. And the level of service provided is vastly different to that provided by public care homes. And this was revealed in the audit report. I think the Director of Audit and Secretary must elaborate more during the hearing today. And as the Secretary said in his opening speech, there are lands available for institutions who come up with a good land premium plan. But what were the results of the report? As of today, not a single care home has been put into use via this scheme. So, what's the reason behind that? This is something we must find out today. And again, according to the audit report, a lot of government departments were saying that they would accept the comments and they would conduct reviews and so on and so forth. But now we had 5,700 elderly people on the waiting list last year who could not enter subsidized care homes. And as we said, it's easier to enter paradise than enter these public care homes. So this is really problematic. As you said, they had made a lot of positive contributions to Hong Kong. So this is not the way we should treat them. So for Chinese people, they really value quality aging, and later on today we will assess these areas one by one. So before I ask my first batch of questions, I want to refer to reports number 63 of the Director of Audit, and the first chapter, first paragraph, and it says the SAR government value elderly people and aging. This is not what C.Y. Leung said. In his policy, he said the elderly people should be able to be provided, and they should have somewhere to live. And C.Y. Leung mentioned that they have to enhance elderly care services in order to shorten waiting time and encourage this community to provide various services to set aside the needs of various sectors, especially elderly people who are needy, and we should provide appropriate institutions and care services. And I think the Secretary should explain what C.Y. Leung promised and how we can provide for the elderly and provide them with places to stay. Would we establish a goal in waiting time in order to address the issue we're most concerned about? You have invested a lot of money, and when we look at social care services, we've spent some 970 million, and social care homes, $3.41 billion. And it's for private care homes, we've spent 2.1 billion. So we have spent a lot of money every year, but yet the queue is getting longer and longer. And in the meantime, a lot of people have passed away. So my first question for the Secretary is that would we adopt the same policy as public housing and establish a target for waiting time? Thank you very much, Ellen, for for mentioning this issue. And so can the Secretary please respond to the first point? Thank you very much.
As for waiting time in the question and answers sessions, we did give a reply, and we are considering how to follow whether to follow the housing department in setting a pledge, say for example 3 years or several years. Now there are constraints in terms of RCHEs, on average 32 months, and nursing homes 34 months, and then board place schemes 7 months at the start. I've said that we respect the wish of the elderly. They can choose the district, they can choose the institutions, they can choose the food, and they can also wait for their spouses, and we respect them. In allocation of places, some elderly refuse to, or say that they prefer to wait a little bit longer when we inform them it is their turn. And if the turnover of the places are outside our control, if we don't allow them to change, then we are unsympathetic. To choose, we are sympathetic. We are unsympathetic if we don't allow them to choose. And we also need to enhance home care service. Now, we cannot avoid policy. If we look forward in the coming 2.5 years, there are many new initiatives under this term of government, and they are relevant. The service voucher, Mr. Leung, now can you answer the question? The longer the answer, the more the meetings. We have a lot of time. I prefer you explain it to the elderly. Please do not follow the previous practice. This may become the 11th meeting otherwise. Mr. Leung's question is about waiting time. Well, thinking hard on this, but we have a lot of constraints. We are considering ways to make improvements. Setting a hard and fast target is difficult. Mr. Leung has already asked you very clearly, how can you comply with the platform of the CE. Is there a timetable? We face difficulties every day. Now the officials are brilliant. They can solve the problems. You have not answered this question. Now we need to write a report. Do you have a pledge? If you say there is none, then there is none. You can't say there are difficulties. We have difficulties. Everybody has. Many elderly passed away while they are waiting. Now answer his first question. He has only asked one question. He is a lead member. The answer is, we will continue to put resources to increase the number of residential places, and we also enhance our home care service. The Elderly Commission will have a service plan. They will drop a blueprint, and next week we will consult the panel. Alan. Well, I have not heard that he has answered your question. Will you follow up? Chairman, let me ask the question. He said that he would increase the number of residential places, but according to the audit report, in the past 14 years, there was only an increase of 1/5. 14 years, 1/5 of the places. Is he joking? Now he accepts our views verbally, but his action shows that he's just marking time. Now, there is a home for the elderly. The elderly will be housed, but more than 5,000 passed away while waiting for a place. That's the fact. In 14 years, they only increased the number of places by 1/5. So are his words meaningless? Now we have the figures. If you don't count the service vouchers, we have planned 1,580 places. 7 institutions are working. 1,580. There are another 3,000 service voucher places. We have earmarked $800 million. We want to provide incentive to the private sector homes, and we will remove the constraints. We cannot adopt a traditional approach. We have adopted new thinking. Give us more time. Now we are going to give subsidy, $2,000. Say if more people stay at home to care for the elderly, then the elderly don't need to go to the homes, the residential homes. We have the intention. We are committed to do that. We know that, but there are tens of thousands who are waiting. They are waiting with their lives, not just the heart. Well, it seems that he has not addressed the question. Next. Sorry, speaker is not coming through. Chairman, is it my turn? Yes, please. Well, I'm not too familiar with the policy on caring for the elderly. I have several questions having read the report. I have found that there are 4 ways to provide a home for the elderly, and they are rather costly. Subsidized homes, contracted homes, and also board play scheme. They are similar. They are providing residential and care home service. If you look at the conclusion concerning the 4 approaches, whether it is nursing home or residential care, there are mismatches. There is mismatching of resources. The elderly are waiting for homes, for places in these LCHGs. They just want to have a place. Whether there are 4 ways, or together with the 5th, money follow the person. You want to provide a place to the elderly as early as possible. Now, since you have just a single objective, why you have so many types? If I am waiting and you give me 4 options or 5 options, they have many modes of delivery of service. Mr. Lin Leung is right. Now, he quoted the platform of the elderly and the platform of the CE. The CE's platform has integrating and enhancing the residential care for the elderly. Have you ever considered amalgamating the 4 or 5 modes or channels so that the elderly can be provided with a place, a residential care place? That will save the administrative resources, and then you can put the money to direct service. Can you integrate the service as required by the CE? Now, let me explain to that. You are not in the panel. Well, the panel, you don't know the details. We need to have the different categories. In the process of aging, elderly people have different needs in different stages. First, the care and attention homes. Basically, the elderly functions mildly disabled. Well, I've read the report. Can you be more direct? As for nursing homes, there is a lot of medical support. Those in the nursing homes cannot care for themselves. We have a central assessment. We look at the physical conditions of the elderly, and we are now moving towards a new direction. Now, we can provide a continuum of care. During the aging process, we don't want the elderly to shift from one institution to another. There is continuum care. While the physical functions are deteriorating, the elderly can still be cared in the same institution. We have added more resources. Can you tell us how much has been added? The director can give you a supplement. So the secretary is saying that there are difficulties of integrating the services, and he is going to have more options for the elderly. Well, the idea is good. Different elderly people have different needs. You have tailor-made service. But I just want to ask the secretary that if you have more options, more channels, then there will be more administrative cost, and there will be less money for the provision of service directly. If you have a new option or new channel, how much administrative cost will be put for that? So you have 2 chunks or 2 tranches. One is for administration cost, the other is for direct service. Now, the secretary, I know that you have the goodwill, but we have not seen how your goodwill is translated into the provision of service. That's the question. Can you answer the question directly? Chairman, let me explain why there are different kinds of residential places. The first reason is we want to provide a continuum of care. We have board place institutions. We have service voucher in the future. There are different categories because of the market situation. In the private homes, there are places available. 24% of the places are vacant. We want to make use of the places available in the market so as to speed up the provision of residential places. We have the enhanced workplace scheme. When we introduced the service voucher scheme, we intend to enhance the quality of service of the private residential care homes. We would like to make use of the places available in the market to provide for the elderly. So therefore, we do not adopt a single approach. We are moving along the direction of continuum of care. In the past, the hostels for the elderly or the RCH and also the RCHEs are enhanced to provide a continuum of care. We are moving towards a integrated approach, and we need to make use of resources in the market. Can you provide a paper on how you are going to integrate? It's okay if you can't do the integration, but if you are doing any integration, what are you doing exactly? And after integration, will the waiting time be shortened? Well, you need to answer this question. If you say you can't do any integration, tell us the truth. We just haven't heard any new idea. Correct me if I'm wrong. We just don't want to waste time. Chairman, if I may shift the question a bit. I read the report and then I look at some statistics. The latest is 2011. The average lifespan of male is 81 and female 87. In the central register, the average age for elderly waiting is 83. When it's time for them to enter the RCHEs, the average age is 87. They start waiting from 83, and when they enter the homes, 87. I really don't know how many years can they stay in the residential homes. Now you spend over $4 billion on homes for the elderly, and many elderly can't wait that long, and even if they can wait that long, they can't stay in the homes for a very long time. It's just like a kind of hospice service. Now you spend $6.2 billion on helping the poor. Now, can you set a target, as suggested by Ms. Helen Leung, say 3 years or 4 years, but you can't say set a target. Can you say, give us a reply? Say if you don't choose a district, then you'll have to wait a longer time. If you don't have any preference, can you guarantee that an elderly will get into the homes within a year? Say if they choose a board place scheme, average waiting time is just 7 months. Just give me a place, residential care, then 7 months. Can you provide us information? In the past 3 years, how do you achieve the 7 months?
To facilitate our discussions, we must have the information on hand. So please share the relevant information with us. Okay, the next question, Mr. Raymond Wong. One more follow-up question. Please refer to paragraph 2.26. The Roman numeral 2. It mentioned the number of places provided by RCHEs, and according to the the audit report from 2009, the number of subsidized to non-subsidized care places is around 6 to 4, and the Director of Audit found that for non-subsidized care places, a lot of them were left vacant. So for the ratio of 6 to 4, is this a stipulation of the policy, or is it just normal practice? If the ratio is not established by the policy, why is it that the service contracts do not require service providers to hand over these vacant care places back to the government, and why were they left vacant? So did the government seek legal advice whether they can reclaim those vacant places? Secretary, efficiency is the key to our discussions. The money has already been spent, but yet we are not providing the services, and we also respect contracts. So have you done your best to monitor the contracts? Chairman, for the ratio of 6 to 4, that's our usual practice. There are different arrangements. We since we respect contracts, when we made contract extensions in the past, we would convert vacant, non-subsidized care places to subsidized places. We have consulted the DOJ, and we decided to add a clause to the contracts in the future if certain care homes have vacant places. If necessary, the government can request them to convert non-subsidized places to subsidized places, and this policy will be enforced by early next year. I have one more simple follow-up question. I have read some audit reports, and even if these care homes hand these vacant places back to the government, they might take it back in the future. So is this unconditional reclaim, or do you have to pay? We will. It's not about loaning these places, because we to convert these places to subsidized places. So based on the contracts, do you have to pay anything extra, or have you already paid for everything? We are paying for the subsidized places. Chairman, so does it mean you have paid twice? Because at the beginning you have already paid for it. So if you when you reclaim the places, then if you have to pay again, then it's like a double payment, right? No, I can elaborate more. As I mentioned, the normal, the usual ratio is 6 to 4. It's the ratio of subsidized to non-subsidized places. And if originally, if we see a vacant place, vacant non-subsidized place, if we convert these places to subsidized places, then elderly people on the central waiting list are able to use them. She didn't mention whether the ratio of 6 to 4 is a policy stipulation. If these care homes are always left vacant, why do you have to keep the 6 to 4 ratio? You can have 5 to 3, so to speak. Does the relevant care place fall within the 6 to 4 ratio or outside of it? You haven't answered our question. This is not a panel meeting. We will follow up until, well, we can follow up for up to 10 years, so to speak, until we get an answer. Let me just try to make it clear. The 6 to 4 ratio is referring to care homes. But in each care home, we would retain a certain number of non-subsidized places for elderly people in need. So this is rather flexible. It's not set in stone, this ratio of 6:4. And this is not a case of double subsidy. Originally, it was a non-subsidized place, which means the government did not pay anything. And when that's converted to subsidized places, we can help elderly people on the central waiting list. So it isn't a case of double payment by the government. But 19% of the places were left vacant. So perhaps you can answer in a moment, Mr. Raymond Wong. Hong Kong is a high income society, and the average earning of each per capita is over $35,000 US. And we have over $3,000 billion in reserve. But what kind of lives are our elderly people leading in Hong Kong? Mr. Alan Leung mentioned that C.Y. Leung promised a lot for the elderly people. But at the end of the day, we have to let the elderly people lead good lives before they pass away. This is a key spirit of Confucius from traditional Chinese philosophy. This is something you have to promise. For developing countries, they have no money, so their hands are tied. So that I understand, but the Hong Kong government is loaded, so we are looking at an issue of resource allocation. The Audit Commission have to look at it from an efficiency perspective. This is not the first time we talk about long-term care for elderly people. We have mentioned this issue a lot of times in LegCo panels, and we obtained a lot of useful information from those meetings. Even when we are looking at the effectiveness aspect of the issue, the government has never addressed issues in constitution, the prices of private elderly services, resource mismatch, service fees, etc. These, we are looking at a lot of institutional issues. I'm very clear with all these issues. That's the first question I asked since I became a LegCo member, and at that time you said you had no figures on hand. And I was really puzzled. I didn't understand why you cannot provide the figures. You are not facing up to the reality. You are not getting to the roots of the problem. You said a lot of things. You said you would provide for the elderly people. You would provide a place to stay, etc. But at the end of the day, nothing was done. You said you have vouchers, medical vouchers, transportation subsidy, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, the key is that you have to give them comfortable lives. You have to give our elderly people comfortable lives, and we have no universal retirement protection. You mentioned things like CSSA and MPF and savings, etc. The problem Gary Chen mentioned is well known. And now our elderly people have to wait until they're 75 or 80. Well, to be frank with you, you know that they don't have a lot of time left by that time. I don't agree with the government's aging policy. You said constitutional support is back up. But it's very hard to implement aging in place nowadays. Young people would not be staying with their parents. Even the young people themselves are in trouble, and they don't even have a place to stay themselves unless they are as rich as you. How do we go about aging in place? I saw a lot of such cases, and if a lot of elderly people were left to die virtually. For a lot of elderly people who live alone, I run a lot of birthday parties, and over 10,000 people have taken part. I really understand their situation. It's really sad. You know, I'm about to get my elderly card. This is a structural problem, and it's been mentioned in the audit report. For private care homes, the fees are very expensive, and they have to pay out of their own pockets. And we have a lot of problems that you should tackle, and we have to reduce the waiting time. And as yet, you cannot promise anything. You cannot even give a timetable. You mention new thinking all the time, but I don't really see it. It's been so many years, Secretary. You have to follow your conscience. You said you have done a lot of things, but when we look at the results, 5,007 people, 5,700 elderly people are passing away every year. So it's really easier to pass away than to secure a place. First question, when we look at 2.14 to 15, in the new territories, the average waiting time is way higher than the average for urban areas. The urban areas, the population in urban areas is lower, but why can't we have more places, care places for the new territories? And the administration's response is that there are a number of factors. If you have statistics for every district, we can see that we can see the real reason for inadequate care places, but yet you didn't provide such figures. And you said the social welfare department said some elderly people can enjoy cross-district services, but where are the figures? If these elderly people are unwilling to cross districts, then what happens? So I hope you can address this question. When did such cross-district services begin? If they are unwilling to leave their own districts, how can we solve the problem? Secretary, perhaps the director can give more later. What you said were daycare services, not care places. In the new territories, it's a challenge for us to secure the land or hardware. In the future, we will try our best to provide more services in areas of high demand in NT. 2.14 actually covers B.
Yes, answer me concerning cross-district service. Yes, Director. 2.14A and B. A refers to daycare, and B refers to home care. Mr. Wong asked about cross-district service. There are 2 points. Now, for new daycare centers for the elderly, starting from 2012, two are allowed to provide cross-district service. And also starting from September 2013, in the first phase of the community care voucher scheme for the elderly, we also allow service providers to provide cross-district service. So the elderly from another district can also receive service by means of the voucher scheme. And we are introducing new services, and there are new places. And in districts when there are more needs, we will add the number of places. The first question is why the time is longer in the new territories under 2.14A. The waiting time is from 11 months to 20 months. This is because of the shortage of space. We need to have premises, and we have difficulties. We are looking for the premises, and also there is a bigger increase in population of the elderly in those districts. We have the cross-district arrangement, therefore, and we are looking for new premises. Now, that's not an answer. We want a firm time frame. When will you wait? When will you shorten the time? Not as short as 1.4 months in Kowloon North. Can you give us an answer? If you can't do it today, can you give it in writing, or maybe when we ask you next time? We need to have a time frame. Otherwise, that will be unfair to the elderly. Because there are too many of them, therefore they are deprived of service. 2.18. 6,800 regarded as inactive. Why you list them as inactive? It doesn't affect the waiting order. Are you going to hide the numbers? Why the director allows that? The 6,800 elderly. Do they know they are listed as inactive? There must be a reason for that. That's really mind-boggling. Why you list them as inactive? There may be many reasons. Explain to us what are the reasons. Do they do it voluntarily? I'm following the same thread. Now, the average waiting time is based on the past 3 months. The average waiting time in the past 3 months among those who are admitted. Now, the extreme examples will affect the average. It's not a good indicator. In December 2013, the calculation method was amended, but there was no record of the grounds for the amendment. What were the reasons for amending the calculation methods? And complicated admission cases. What are these? Complicated case, inactive case. What do you mean? There are many gray areas. Time for dealing with time for making assessment. You didn't mention the average time. It's just like the housing authority. The housing department was criticized by the audit commission. This problem was exposed. Why you still adopt the same approach? The director. Mr. Alan Leung has also raised that why you have these 6,800. First, on the 6,800 on active or inactive cases. In fact, we did provide a paper to the LegCo. In 2003, we provided a paper to the welfare panel and explained that we had different cases. They have so-called double choices. If they are willing to accept community care service, after they have community care service, they will be listed as inactive. And if they want to join the queue for residential care at any time, they can follow the original date of application. In the paper, we stated that these elderly people were regarded as inactive cases. And within the welfare sector, there was a widespread consultation among the stakeholders or service providers in 2012. There was a detailed consultation. Letters were issued to stakeholders, service providers, explaining that. As for the waiting time, the first question, you have not answered my first question. Why you list them as inactive? Do they know they are listed as inactive? Do they know the reasons? Is it because you want to reduce the number? Yes or no? Yes or no? You just cook the books. Chairman, when we didn't cook the books, the elderly know that after they receive community care service, they will be listed as inactive, and this will not reduce the number of cases. The number of cases from active into inactive is more than from inactive to active. But you have not explained the 6,800. They are still waiting, but they are not included in the central register. Why they are not included in the central register? Is it so, Mr. Wong? Yes, thank you, Thank you, Chairman. Answer this question. Why they are not in the register? Now, we will report this, the number of inactive cases, but this will not substantially increase the waiting time because there are inactive who become active and there are active who become inactive. Our question is 5,800, 6,800. Yes, 6,800 plus and other 5,000. That's more than 10,000. In fact, you are binding your own hands because you cut the numbers. It's just so simple. We don't want to make this judgment. It seems that you are cooking the books. You manipulate the numbers. Now, 5,800 passed away, 6,800 were not counted. Why is it so? We don't understand. Well, we're not hiding. After the elderly can ask to become active again at any time. If they have the need, we just switch them from inactive into active. Why you have to do so? Ms. Lee, would you please explain? Perhaps we are stupid. No, not at all, not at all. We just don't understand. And you're willing to change. So what do you mean? We need to find the facts. As said by the director, in 2003, when there was the new system, we reported to the LegCo that there are two numbers. One is active cases, the other non-active or inactive cases. If they are in the active list, then when there is a place in an institution and is the institution preferred by the elderly, then the place will be given to the elderly. Now, the trade and the elderly ask us to have an inactive list. They are waiting, but they are not ready to get into the institutions. And if we put them into the active list, then they will be called. We have a place in this home. Many elderly say they don't want it for the time being. They just ask us to put them in the inactive list. This is the trade, the request of the trade. They are waiting for residential care. That was in 2011. The HKCCS and its institutions, together with elderly, asked the SWD to consider those who are waiting for residential care. Can they be given a choice of being inactive? Can you give us a paper on that? I think they are just quoting it out of context. If we look at the Audit Commission report 2.17, under small a, Central Register, 6,800 elderly were listed as inactive and not included. They raised 3 points, but you have not addressed those 3 points. One question is, the Director of Audit is the view that the change in situation of these cases in reporting the number on the waiting list, the SWD does not disclose it. The Central Register menu and the SWD menu do not make any amendment to reflect elderly who have turned inactive. You don't. You give us a paper, what's meant by active, what's meant by inactive. That's meaningless. And you have not answered my question. Complicated admission cases. What are the complicated admission cases? This affects the whole waiting time. The register cannot reflect the real situation. Why you cut corners? Unless you can answer my question, otherwise you're just cutting corners. The director. You really need to provide us information. It's hard for us to accept the answers you've given. It seems that you just led us down the garden path. In fact, we have been led through several gardens. You really need to provide us the facts. Yes, let me give you the data. Concerning complicated cases, they are those who have been receiving community care and they have turned inactive. They are not calculated in the waiting list. I hope. Let her answer the question. Okay, let her answer the question. I give you time. Lots of time we have. Concerning the non-inactive case, before they raise their hands, they are waiting for residential care. Let me give you the data. I've already explained why in doing the calculation we don't include them. Say, in 2013, they are waiting in the line, but they raise their hands. They want community care. From active non to inactive, about 4,779. 4,979. From active to non-active. The director was the director sitting next to you, or the policy secretary, 2003. I think it should be the current CS for A, Carrie Lam. You better ask her, because that you are just trying to understand it. Were you the deputy director? No, I was the director of education. I think it's better to get those papers for us. Your answer cannot satisfy us. We need to be fair in dealing with the question. Can you fish that paper for us, why there was such a situation? And she has to explain what is meant by complicated admission cases. You just say that it's very complicated. What do you mean by complicated cases? We still have several more meetings. That is time. And one more question. The time for doing the assessment is not included. Why you adopt the same method as the housing department? I was trying to explain the number why it was not included. Every year from active to inactive, the number is more than those converting from inactive to active. For those who are leaving the queue, the number is more than those who are joining the queue. I understand that. I asked for the time needed. The time for doing assessment. Why you don't include that in the waiting time? The question is very clear. That's related to the next question. Is about the tool for assessment, the assessment tools, step by step. The director, in terms of calculating the waiting time, now since the person has obtained community care, therefore the person is not in the line. Many years ago, we didn't have such a distinction, as explained by the secretary. In providing support of residential care, according to the study of the Elderly Commission, we are asked to substantially increase community care. While we are raising the number of community care, the number of inactive cases has been rising. And if we calculate if we include them, then we are not fully reflecting the actual number of elderly who are waiting for residential places. Well, we just want to understand, though you can't answer the question. The Secretary, Mr. Wong Yuk-man. Now, in 2.21, the assessment 2. Now, after this question, then I'll give the floor to Paul. Concerning assessment, I have 2 questions. The assessment 2, you spent 13 years to update that. It can be more detailed. With the update, the tool can provide a more detailed assessment of the deterioration in functions of the elderly. And you use now is 2.0, and in the future it will be 9.1 version. The 9.1 version. Now, the assessors need to have some time to accommodate to the tool. The recognized assessors, their involvement is very low. Among 2,700, only 580 participate in assessment. 1,800 active assessors. Are they in the SWD? Where are the inactive assessors? Do they come from certain organizations? Do they concentrate among several organizations? Are they supported by public funds? Starting from October, NGOs increase manpower to do assessment. In the past, was there any supervision of the assessors in doing the assessments? From assessment to the assessors, the director. Concerning the non-active assessors, there are several reasons. Some have retired, some have left service, some have left the unit. Therefore, they are not. They didn't participate in assessment. Why the SWD does most of the assessment? Now we have to do this. If the NGOs do not have assessors, then the SWD will take up the job. As for the application for by private homes, the assessment will also be done by the SWD's assessors. In 2011 and 2014, with regard to the assessment office, we have added manpower so as to enhance the speed of assessment. The waiting time for assessment is not too long. It's just about 3 weeks. But we still want to speed up the process. We increase the manpower for the assessment unit. We also provide the resources to the centers for the elderly. They can also do assessments and can speed up the process.
Mr. Wong, with the as far as the assessors are concerned, the rate of participation is pretty low, and that would affect the waiting time. You simply cannot talk about improvement. Tell us the specific measures. Do you admit that the rate of participation among the assessors is low? That's according to the Director of Audit. We have audit data there. How are you going to go about improving it? And the updating of the assessment tool, you have to train up the relevant people. Well, if you can't answer the question, fine, you can give us supplementary reply. Chairman, there are 2 sides to it. The first one is to increase the number of posts. How many have been increased? We have added 9 posts. The other thing is for the 41 district centers and 191 neighborhood centers, we have also allowed them to increase the number of social workers. How many have been increased? We expect that they would be able to provide 8,000 services. Paul? Chairman, I understand that regarding the active and inactive cases, there would be background information to be made available. Perhaps I'd like to add one more thing here. Why is it that you didn't ask the elderly when they first made the application as to whether they would like to have the places or the CCS or what? Why do you have to switch them back and forth? Director? Thank you, Chairman. That's the result of the assessment. We didn't put them on the waiting list at the beginning. The elderly have to be subject to physical assessment, and according to the assessment, there are 3 options available. First, the physical condition would only allow them to have hostel or the home care or elderly home care. The second is they don't need to have the elderly home care. The third one is a bit of both, CCS or elderly home care. Now, we have commissioned a consultant to review the assessment tool, and depending on the results, we will review the allocation of the services. Mr. J, other than the physical conditions, you said that some would be eligible for both. Other than physical conditions, what about the preferences of the elderly people, the preferences of the family members? Wouldn't they be better indicators? Why do you have to switch them back and forth between active and inactive? Director? Yes, both are included, their preferences and also the physical condition. Without the physical condition assessment, some family members would like to put them in a home, but given the limited resources, we simply cannot follow their wishes in all cases as to whether they should get a CCS or the elderly home. But some have not been included in the waiting list. Some are switched to daycare, and they put them in the 3rd category, and they're not included. And Mr. Che is putting this very question. You should have the resources. If you do not include them, why do you simply do not have the resources? But for the 3rd category, if they really need community care services, we do have a waiting list for that. And we will see whether they need the home care service or the day center services. We will provide the services depending on their needs. Mr. Che, I'm not sure whether this is a good comparison. For public housing, if they are eligible, they would be given the preferences. Of course, they can choose not to accept the offer, but you don't have to have the mechanism whereby each year you ask them. I hope there is. If you don't, then don't you have the mechanism to ask about their preferences? In your assessment mechanism, shouldn't there be an option as to whether they would prefer elderly care home or daycare services? It's far better than switching them back and forth. Well, you put a question to them many times. Can you take the question, please? Chairman, we would take care of their preferences. Now, if they are on the waiting list for old folks' homes, and that means that they want to be placed in a home. Now, when the turn comes up, they can still make their choices for CCS. Or they can always indicate their intention that they would like to take the community care service, but that would be regarded as inactive cases, and they may have family members helping them. But anytime they can switch back to the queue for the elderly homes. Now we are making it flexible to cater for the elderly's wishes. Yes, indeed, you'd like to have some flexibility. Now, for those on the waiting list for 12 months, you would have a review. Is that correct, Director? Assistant Director. Now, when the turn comes, it would. I mean, it's only when their assessment has exceeded 12 months that there would be assessment. It's not an assessment every 12 months. Mr. J. Now, those who don't need a home for the elderly, why do you exclude them? Why do you focus your attention on the CCS? I mean, if you switch back and forth between active and inactive, it's all very confusing, isn't it? Director, I think it is in the third category that is causing confusion, isn't it? Chairman, now why do we need physical assessment? That's because we need to establish whether they need to have long-term care. Without that, they don't need to have they don't have the need for the homes. Well, that's the 6,800. Indeed, that takes us back to the fact that we have to respect the wishes of the elderly. Well, on the face of it, you are, but as a matter of fact, you are making them not exercise their choice. That you may persuade them to take daycare or home care or whatever, and that doesn't reflect the actual situation, does it? Can you explain further in greater detail for our benefit? Director. Well, it's not us persuading them. Of course, after the assessment on the physical functions, if the community care would be enough, then they will not be put on the queue for home for the elderly. But for the 6,800, it is their wishes, not us telling them to take daycare, that they may be on the list for an elderly home, but they would like to stay at home. They have other support, and it is their wish that they would like to hold it off, and they like to have community care services first, and we do respect their wishes, so that they do have a choice, and they can, in the meantime, can be provided with other services. It's not something that we impose upon them. It is their wishes that they don't join the queue for the home for the elderly. Paul? Well, maybe by the time we read the report, it would be clearer. Let me switch to the time taken for the assessment. I understand that for some officers, like district officers, it would take a longer time, much longer time. Now, for the uneven time taken, would you, or have you taken measures to address that? 2.18 D for dog. Director. Chairman. You can speak into the mic, please. Well, that's the time taken by different officers. We have added 9 posts for these officers, and we hope that we can beef up the manpower support. Do we have the same number of officers in each office? Yes, indeed. Well, some are handling 14, some are handling 42. Why the discrepancy? In the table there, 2.18. Can you elaborate on this, please? On manpower deployment, they are the same, but different officers would have different caseload. In the past, there are some officers that in which some officers might be taken ill, and we have increased the manpower. Mr. J, if you look at page 21 at the table there, Office 3, 14 days, 5, 42 days, 3 times as long. So in terms of administration, have there been any problems with additional manpower? Are you able to deploy more manpower to the offices where the time taken is much longer, like 42 days, Director? But with additional manpower, we like to even out the caseload. We are monitoring the situation with regard to different officers and the time taken for the assessment, and when necessary, we will redeploy the manpower. You haven't done that before, is that right, Director? Or we didn't have enough manpower in the past? Secretary, they didn't have enough manpower. Why didn't you increase the level of manpower so that the elderly don't have to wait for so long. That they do need the community care services. I mean, it would be hard for them to be kept waiting even for 24 hours. You must be alive to this problem. Secretary. Whereas Director said we have increased 9. We will add more resources where necessary. The well-being of the elderly is important. Mr. Chair, well, it's very vague to say that you don't have enough manpower, but is it a problem of management that explains the discrepancy in the time taken for assessment? Director. Chairman. As I said earlier on, there are offices in which some staff are suffering from chronic illness, and we don't have the manpower to replace the shortfall. And as I said, other than the increase of manpower in the elderly district center and neighborhood centers, we will increase the manpower so that they can also assist in the assessment work. Secretary and Director, we're not micromanaging here in the LegCo, but that would have a bearing on the senior citizens. And we are talking about the issue from the value for money perspective. Now, we like to go into detail because we like to get to the bottom of the problems. And I hope that the government would understand the problems that are besetting them. They're far more serious than anything else. I don't think it's good enough for you to say that manpower is not sufficient and that's it. We cannot leave it at that. Paul? Yes, I switched from inactive to active cases. Thank you very much, Chairman, for elaborating my question. Now we're talking about some offices where the time taken for assessment is 42 days and some 14 days. Now we'd like to find out whether there are any inadequacies. Some offices would need 3 times as long to conduct the assessment. In 2014, by the end of July, we have 2,900 cases that are still awaiting assessment. The number may not be staggering. It may be staggering to some people, but if we don't conduct a review, I don't think there is a mechanism to monitor the work of every office. Director? Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the question. Now, we do monitor the offices, and that there may be inadequacies in different offices. We do hope that we can make up for them. Now, going forward, for a long-term care allocation system, we have developed a computer system, and we hope that everything will be computerized to enable us to do a better job in monitoring. Thank you very much for your reminder. Well, the Secretary has been in your post, Director. I hope that the Secretary will understand the fact that the lack of manpower would affect the level of services. Chairman, I've never been a director of social welfare. I was director of education. That's for clarification. Well, it makes me, I mean, you strike me as someone who understands, who is empathetic with people. And I hope that, well, I think that there is a lack of funding, and so many elderly people have been put through all these ordeal. That there are 6,800 people who are suffering so much. And it's not simply a question of policy, it's a question of resources. And I hope that you would give more support to the long-term care. I know that the Secretary has been putting in the efforts, but lack of manpower is indeed a problem. It's good that we have the Secretary here for questioning, and I think you have put in a lot of efforts. Paul? All right. Mr. Alan Leung, please. Secretary, before we move on, let's take a short break, and then we go on until 12.
希望唔好行出去，因為我哋唔夠 call。
得。
好。哦，跟住係梁家傑議員繼續。
好多謝副主席。副主席，我想問下咧，就係咁啊嗱，頭先我哋。
Chairman, we spent quite a lot of time on the 6,800 inactive elderly. Why there is such a group created? Ms. Lee, the AD, said that that was to give respect to the elderly.
呢個只係一個行。
Well, I don't quite understand. Well, there are people who are on the waiting list, and they are not prepared to go into a home. Now, why is it that the statistics given to LegCo do not include the 6,800? Administratively, indeed, you don't really want to trouble them if they don't want to go into a home. But statistically, presumably they are still on the central waiting list. And there is a hidden demand there. In fact, there are 500 or so inactive elderly, and they are indicating their intention. They raise their hand. In your words, there is such a hidden demand there. Why is it that they are not reflected in the statistics presented to us? Director. As I said, these are inactive cases, and they're not on the waiting list for a home, but they can still make their indication. Given this concern, we have explained on the web the waiting time and how we deal with these inactive cases. When we do the planning, or when we attend LegCo meetings, so we can make available the figures again. Now, we're not. It's not a question of simply adding 6,800 to the list, and we will monitor the statistics, and we will report to LegCo at the right time.
Chairman, I think there's little point in even if I ask more questions. I think the administration is just trying to, in vain, to explain themselves. I think the director must admit that for these 6,800 elderly people represent a hidden need in Hong Kong. Last year, more than 500 elderly people offered. They indicated their need, and they were admitted to these care homes, and I think I don't really accept the claim that you would not keep mentioning you would not keep offering these places to elderly people, and as you mentioned, then under paragraph 2.17, more than 30,000 elderly people are on the central waiting list. And did you perform regular follow-up and updates on the latest situation? And you are ignoring elderly people on the waiting list. What are the arrangements? Do you do any age analysis, Director? Chairman, we have people on the waiting list, but we also see a lot of changes as we launch social or community initiatives, and we would certainly outline our latest policy to the elderly people. So we are absolutely not ignoring them. When we have new services, we would introduce them to the elderly people in order to help them. And for those on the waiting list for care places, we do have community service vouchers so that the elderly people can choose the services they need, and they can also seek services from providers in other districts. So we are not ignoring them. So we are monitoring our work on in both scopes, whether elderly people on the care places, waiting lists, as well as the community initiatives. And on the for the central waiting list, each elderly person will be assigned a coordinator, and the coordinator will outline any new services we have, and they would remain in close touch. And for this figure of 38,000 of 30,690, how many of them, for those 30,000 or so elderly people, how many of them have been waiting for a long time, and how many of them have just joined the waiting list? Do you have such figures? I think how to manage the queue is an important issue. As the chairman said, if you know more, then you can manage the queue more efficiently. Can the director give us a breakdown? Is each elderly person on the queue assigned a coordinator? I don't think this is the case since you have a manpower shortage. I want to know what the situation is. Chairman, this is the fact. Each elderly person is assigned a working coordinator, and these coordinators are from various NGOs, and each elderly person is assigned a fixed coordinator. And for the waiting list, we do have some breakdown in figures, but we don't have them on hand. We must have all these figures before we can come up with the average waiting time. And there are a number of factors. And as I mentioned, the elderly people have choices. And for specific care homes, about 60% of the elderly people can receive a fixed care place, and about 30% can choose their would end up in the districts they prefer. How many working coordinators do we have right now? How many working coordinators do we have? The director said for each elderly person on the central waiting list, they would be taken care of by a coordinator. Can you please elaborate? Each person is assigned a coordinator, but each coordinator would take care of more than one case. But that said, each elderly person on the central waiting list would have a coordinator assigned. And different institutions would follow up on the cases. You're not referring to government staff, but staff from other institutions like NGOs, right? Yes. Does the SWD have any statistics on, in terms of number of people, number of coordinators, how many staff do we have, whether it's government or non-governmental staff? We don't have this statistic on the total number of coordinators, but each case would be taken care of by an institution, and that institution must assign one staff to each case. And for the Integrated Service Center, each elderly person would be assigned a caseworker, and for elderly care homes, the members of elderly service centers, if there are frail elderly persons, social workers would apply for membership on behalf of these elderly people, and that relevant staff would become the case manager. And the case manager would take care of any follow-up work in the future. And for elderly people on the waiting list, if they have no preferences at all, we do have statistics online. According to statistics on the 30th of October, for subsidized care places, as long as they don't have any preferences, and for the waiting time dates back to November 2013, and for men it dates back to May 2013, and for nursing homes it's for men it's from November 2011, and for women February 2012, and for men, for those who entered the list on August 2014, then they would have got a place already. So the point is, if they have no preferences, the waiting time would be much less, and all these are available online. Can you can save us the time of scouring the internet, please provide the statistics. And for the figure of 30960, can you give us a breakdown on the specific waiting times for different types of people? How many of them have been on the list for a long time, and how many have just joined? Mr. Alan Leung. You said that the statistics you shared are for people who have no preferences. For females, it dates back to November 2013. So that means they only had to wait for 1 year before they got admitted. Your policy is about aging in place and constitutional support as backup. If the elderly have other considerations or preferences, they have to wait longer. So in the meantime, they should be staying at home, right? But when I look at the audited figures, Chairman, in terms of resource allocation, the government spent $3.41 billion last year in RCHEs, but only $970 million were spent in social care services. If you are to implement aging in place, you have to increase community and home-based care services by many folds. When we look at the we have more than 5,000 people waiting to receive community and home-based services. So what measures do you have in place to increase the number of service spaces? When you think about the effectiveness, well, I didn't even include the $2.1 billion for non-subsidized care places. When you consider those $2.1 billion from CSSA, you have spent $5.5 billion for care places in total. The administration has always emphasized aging in place, but the resource allocation doesn't really reflect the direction of your policy. Can you refer to the specific paragraph? Well, I made some notes, but I can't remember where this comes from. But those statistics, those figures should be correct. I just copied them from the papers. Secretary, I will just respond to a few points first. We are stepping out our efforts to implement aging in place. We have spent $5.3 million more on elderly social centers, and we are hiring more social workers to enhance our services, our support services. And we will spend $87 million more on elderlies to upgrade elderly centers. So we have to improve our infrastructure before we can do anything else. So we are stepping up our efforts and putting in a lot more resources. And we have $22 million for 24 community centers to recruit more social workers for to help elderly people in need. And we have also spent more to train carers. And we have spent $172 million more in this financial year to increase the amount of home care services by a quarter, and it will be enforced by March. We will upgrade our services and step up recruitment and training, and for the we will introduce 1,500 more home care places, which is a 25% increase. So we have done a lot more in the past year, but we are not satisfied yet. We will do even more. And together with this community service voucher scheme, we have given out 1,200 vouchers, and we have commissioned HKU to follow up on the elderly services, and we are taking a multi-pronged approach. We are adopting a new set of thinking. I agree that elderly welfare is extremely important, and it's important to do more in order to really realize the aging at home approach. And I just want to add more on the resource allocation. And the amount of money on social care services and RCHEs is very different. So when we just look at the money, we cannot see the real difference. Care places are very expensive in Hong Kong, and 7% of our elderly people have entered care places, and this percentage is very high when compared with other countries. So we would like to enhance our social care services in order to implement aging in place. Apart from the service places, we have launched phase 1 of the voucher scheme, and in September next year we will launch the second phase. We will see whether these vouchers can increase the total amount of service places available. Since time is limited, if can we allow, perhaps we can allow Gary Chan to continue, or maybe Ellen Lang. And in page 45 of the Chinese version, the table 2 and paragraph 1.12 and 1.14 and 2.10 and 4.4b. So these are the places and the tables and paragraphs I'm referring to. So the real problem we are facing now is that the Secretary has said he understands the needs of the elderly, But my impression is that we have spent billions of dollars every year, but we are not getting results. It's all empty talk. I think our social welfare policy in terms of elderly care, everything is inadequate. The case is you're making things very complicated, and it seems you're doing a bit of everything, but at the end you are not taking care of these people. As Mr. Gary Chen said, when you look at 2.17 and 18, well, basically 2.18 under paragraphs A and B, especially under paragraph B, on the CWL, the average lifespan is 83 years. And for those who have entered subsidized RCS places, whether we are talking about nursing homes or CNA, the average lifespan of these elderly people is 83 years. So I think there are two ways to interpret this figure. For those, for people who have reached 65 years of age, they don't have to undergo a means test, and they are qualified to receive RCS services from the government. And how long do they have to wait? So on average, they have to wait from 65 to 83 years of age before they can secure the places, which means they have to wait for 18 years. And they can continue. And the second way of interpreting it is that they usually stay for around 4 years only. I think this is there is something wrong, as some members mentioned. Whether is this really a kind of hospice service? So can the secretary address the issue from an efficiencies perspective? For elderly people who are already admitted, they might receive better care, and as such they can live longer. So I feel very sorry for our elderly people. They are qualified to receive elderly care services once they reach 65, but they have to wait for another 18 years before they are admitted, and after that they can only enjoy services. Well, they can only enjoy around 4 years of service before they pass away. This is really unfair and unjust for elderly people. So is this the correct interpretation? I think Mr. Leung has misunderstood the entire situation. At 65 years of age, elderly people would undergo a physical examination to see if they can take care of themselves. Our nurses would help with these tests. There's a central mechanism is in place. We're not saying that everyone who has reached 65 can would need to enter our homes, because some of them don't need it. The average waiting time for care services is around 3 to 4 years. And as the director said, if you have no preferences, the waiting time is as short as 1 year. If you don't mind entering boss places, you don't have to wait that long. This average lifespan of 83 years is based on, well, actually some places, a lot of places have centurions, and they're aged 100 or more, and a lot of them live beyond 83 years of age. So that's why we have to work harder to implement aging in place. We have to increase the number of places. This is something we inevitably have to do. I think the secretary is not really answering my question. When you look at paragraph B in 2.18, we are talking about the average lifespan. And when you are 65 years of age, you have the right to be assessed and enter the waiting list. But the fact is, the average lifespan of people on the list is 83 years. And for those staying in subsidized RCS places, the average age is 87 years. Of course, I'm not trying to waste time here, but on the Secretary mentioned the assessment scheme. When you look at paragraph D,
now, Chairman, in fact, you have asked that question. If you look at the report on the page from 2009 to 10 financial year, all the way to 2013 to 14, 5 years in a row, every year the number is increasing. Average processing time for a care need assessment. The 7 days 5 years ago, and now 27 days average processing time. Now, if you really mean what you say, there's aging in place. There is the elderly will be cared for. The elderly will be housed. Then why you sit there and have done nothing? As for the 2.21b, there are 2,700 accredited assessors, but 70% of the cases were done by 36 assessors. A small number, a very small number. And therefore, the average processing time is increasing over the years. Now we're going to write a report, Mr. Chairman. This is value for money. We give out billions of dollars every year. We see the elderly who are in need of assessment has to wait longer and longer. And there are less and less assessors. 36 of them are actively doing this. And 5,700 went to paradise before they were given a place in the homes for the elderly. Now, can the director tell us what specific measures are there? The Secretary will say we have the Elderly Commission and it's going to write a report in 2 years' time. And in 2 years, more than 10,000 will pass away and without a home in the home for the elderly. Yes, the director on assessors. With regard to assessment, I've already explained that we know that the situation has to be improved, and we have 2 things to do. First, concerning the assessment office, we will increase. We have increased manpower, and among 41 district centers for the elderly, and also in the neighborhood centers, 119 neighborhood centers for the elderly, we increase manpower on assessment. When an elderly needs assessment, they can go to the centers or go to our office, and we hope that we can speed up the process. Well, it's a time for us to have a break, so we have a break of 10 minutes, and then we come back at 11:15, and then Mr. Chanakan will begin.